Так, алло, ё-моё. Фу, ну шо, мужики, ё-моё, ну шо вы, ну шо. Как? Как так? Чё скажете? Я вот бананчик пока хаваю. Так, все, на месте. На месте, здорово, привет. Ой, хорошо. Потому что это expansion, типа как смены будет чушо. Я надеюсь. Да, я надеюсь, что это будет дополнение. Короче, я на саму лигу не надеюсь, мне похуй. Я надеюсь на дополнение хорошее. Вот, что я надеюсь. Кефирчик немного. Я надеюсь именно на дополнение. А лига, как обычно, говно будет. Ну, сами механики в плане. Надеюсь, шафл методом. Так да, а что методом? Какая разница, если вы просто играть заходите? Метод для людей, например, как спидранеры. Вам-то какая разница? Я вот надеюсь, что именно как в целом, вот по большим каким-то изменениям, это вот форточка, мом, Island and Moon, эксплоужены. Да. Что такое? И Harvest моды, я думаю, надо бы тоже подровнять. Потому что они сейчас оверпауэрят вообще. Куда еще нервничать? В смысле? Так. А почему вообще должен существовать Explosion как в принципе тема? Так не должно в принципе работать. Ну, я считаю, это ужасная механика. Если это не, ну, как сказать, конкретно фича. То есть, например, Hand of Ash. Это, блядь, как бы весь скилл об этом, да? Ну, плюс-минус. Так что, блядь, ну, ему положено это делать. Именно поэтому, я считаю, например, такие билды, как типа Dual Strike какой-нибудь, он не может иметь Explosion никакого, потому что, блядь, какой смысл тогда? А пульса? Так вот, и про то же, что если ты хочешь Explosion, тебе нужно, ну, чтобы это было как-то либо Ascendancy based, либо к шмоткам привязано. Например, сейчас что у нас есть? Импульса, перчатки есть. Вообще охуительные. Перчатки просто имбалансные, я считаю. Там тоже надо поменять что-то этим перчаткам. Давай, блядь.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Welcome to our live stream and thanks so much for joining us today. Our team had a lot of fun putting together Path of Exile's 3.15 expansion, and we've got a lot to share with you. Today's live stream is a busy one. We'll start by revealing the details of this expansion's new challenge league. Then we'll show you how this expansion is going to dramatically...
Many centuries ago, our people traveled to this accursed continent. We return to reclaim our lost relics. But Raycraft grips its secrets tightly. We must wrench them from its grasp.
Ну да, легко. Для скилла не выбору, да, для шоу-кейса.
We know trade. Retrieve our relics and we'll strike a deal.
А для бриф...
We will follow the path of our forebears.
Экспедиции по типу мини-атласа, да? А что с качеством? Нормально. Блять. О, вау! Я понял, как он работает сразу. Вы видели этот скилл охуенно? Вот это хорошо хотя бы. Очень здорово.
And power will be yours should you survive our expedition.
Базару 0. Классно, очень классно. Первый трейлер, который мне нравится. Лига хороша? Да не, Лига-то хуйня. Просто именно вот шоу боссы и прочее. Именно экспана и,
Alright, I've got a lot to tell you about. Let's start.
ну, соответственно, просто, короче,
The ancient
охотники за
Kalgurans
артефактами.
underestimated the dangers of Rayclust, and this new expedition is no exception. They need your help to protect them from the undead that rise at their expedition sites.
И эту хуйню защищают
As you
андеды,
travel through
короче.
Rayclust, you'll encounter the Kalgurans at sites they believe their ancestors attempted to settle in the past. By the time you get there, they will have marked the site with signs indicating where chests are buried, holes indicating where their ancestors lie, and will have possibly unearthed some remnants of past Kalguran settlement.
Есть
Due
шанс
to the
еще, что,
unique
кстати,
nature of
вылезет
Rayclust, the
равник
Kalgurans
даже
have found that
раскрытие.
the most effective way to excavate these sites is with
Ну, а так вы
explosives.
поняли, да, что
And
ну,
that's where
на
you come
сундуке
in.
написано
You'll place a
равно.
chain of explosives across the expedition site, carefully planning what each blast is going to unearth.
Ну, соответственно, этими вы просыпаете, типа, этих челов. Не знаю, это какой-то
Once you
регион
push the plunger,
слишком
any
хуёвый.
undead freed by the explosions rise from the ground and the slaughter begins. Some of these fallen Kalgur are more difficult and rewarding than others, and have been indicated with special markers.
Да, есть прям жесткие уники, типа. Ну, не уники, а просто монстры жесткие.
Once you have defeated the army of undead, you're free to open all of the chests you unearthed and claim your rewards.
Так.
It's up to you to decide where to place the chain of explosives to maximize your gains. Do you unearth a lot of monsters? Do you unearth more special monsters? Or do you go for the chests and try to avoid combat?
А у него типа 3 осталось, 2, да, и потом будет.
The ancient
Ah,
Kalguran
у него
explorers
максимум
built
типа
structures
4
on
заряда.
Rayclust, and you may encounter remnants of these at excavation sites. These
Да,
remnants have
4
various
заряда.
modifiers on them that, when destroyed, apply to monsters and chests unearthed from that explosion onwards. Remnants greatly increase drops, but have some very difficult modifiers like immune to physical damage. You'll need to be very careful with your decision of which remnants to chain your explosives
Типа там
through,
есть
as they
жесткие моды вот
substantially
на
ramp up the
специальных
difficulty and
тумбочках
rewards
этих,
of the
которые
encounters.
есть. Интересно.
Speaking of rewards, there's a lot of cool stuff to find. Alongside valuable equipment and currency items are Kalguran artifacts and logbooks, which we'll talk about soon.
Специальные
The Kalguran
колгорские
traders have made
артефакты.
this expedition to Rayclust in order to recover their ruined artifacts. There are many different types of artifacts, and each of the Kalgurans is interested in a different set of them, with a unique way they want to trade them from you.
О, вау,
For
они
this
еще по-разному
expansion, we really
трейдятся,
wanted to play
поняли?
with
То
the
есть
idea
каждый
of
артефакт
having
по-разному
NPCs
можно
that want to
трейдиться.
trade with you in different ways. So we have themed their behaviors around the concepts of gambling, bartering, upselling, and exchanging. Let's meet the Kalgurans.
Здорово.
Tuyen is a mercurial trader who maintains a positive outlook as long as he can, but if you cross a line, his temper changes quickly.
Короче, нормальный парень,
Tuyen
но если
offers you
переборщишь,
items
тебе
with
пизда.
unreasonably high prices, but he's happy to haggle. You can always buy the item at the price he's offering, but if you offer a lower price, he might accept it,
Да,
counteroffer,
это торговец.
or withdraw the item entirely. if he's offended
Офер,
by the low
ебать. Вот это жестко.
He also occasionally sells currency items, so it's worthwhile keeping some of the artifacts he's looking for on hand just in case you see an opportunity. Grog is
Не,
an
говорит,
average
мало,
man
нихуя не
pushed into
возьму.
Rayclust's dangers. He's helpful, concerned, and a bit fearful. He is very happy for you to do the fighting so that he can stay safe on the sidelines. He loves making deals and trying to upsell you. If you buy one of the items that Grog offers, he'll try to offer you a more complex deal where he improves the item via crafting.
О, то есть ты
If you
покупаешь
accept
айтем,
this
он тебе
deal,
предлагает
he'll try
еще
to upsell you
улучшить его.
again and again until you eventually walk away with your purchase. If you can't afford one of these incremental upgrades, you can leave and come back later with enough ruined artifacts to cover the cost. Because you don't get to supply your own starter item for this process, and have to select an item with promise from the range that he offers, his incremental crafting upgrades are priced rather cheaply.
Лоу-тир хуйни. О,
Gwenin is a cynical gambler who claims that luck depends on how hard you believe. So you really need to convince yourself that you're going to get that headhunter. If you don't, it's your fault. Gwenin shows you a set of base types with unknown properties. When you gamble by buying one, you'll receive a random item of that base type back. It could easily be a random magic item that you have no use for.
То
It
есть
can
она
sometimes
продает
be a
белые,
valuable, rare, or
но
unique
просто
item.
рандомные.
It's probably
Это
best to
сделано как
prioritize
в
gambling on base types that are most relevant to your character.
Last Epoch
Once you
Gamble.
have exhausted all the items that interest you, it's possible to use a specific new currency item to re-roll the gamble window to a set of new items of your current level. Sometimes a
белые
base type
базы, они
shows up
могут
that is a
апнуться
lot more
просто
expensive
рандомно.
than it would. You can talk to the traders in the wild, in town, or in your hideout. They grant you access to your expedition locker, which is like the heist locker, a lockbox for League-specific items, which can be accessed in all 3 places also. We're adding the affinity system to these lockers. Among the many relics of the ancient Kalgurans you might find at their expedition sites are logbooks. These ancient books chronicle the locations that their ancestors visited in their exploration of Rayclust. A logbook item can be rolled to have a set of explicit mods, like an in-game map. Each location within the logbook has its own implicit mods, as well as a theme that controls what types of remnants can be found there. Talk to Dag in your hideout and give him a logbook you have found to go on an expedition to one of the locations it describes. These are all exotic places that no exiles have ever traveled to before. But because there are special objects that you can interact with using explosives. For example, trees that contain monsters or items, passageways that reveal chests or bosses, and so on. Speaking of bosses, there are some formidable ones for you to seek out, and a set of valuable new unique items and base types that can only come from expedition content. The Kalguran people are not from Rayclust, so the items do not have the same defensive properties that ours do. Instead of armor, evasion, and energy shield, they have ward. This new base type is a pair of boots that grants ward and can get mods to improve it. The way that ward works is that you have a certain amount of it, and that amount is fully deducted from the first incoming hit that you receive. Your ward is then disabled and takes 5 seconds to re-enable. At that point, the next hit you receive is substantially mitigated in the same way. It's quite a different style of defensive property and works very well in conjunction with systems like evasion, block, or dodge.
Почти как ES, речаржится каждые 5 секунд и блочит просто pure damage. Просто там написано там столько-то варда, и он блочит его full. Вот это интереснее всего. Мне эта хуйня полная, мне не нравится все, что это
было. And we're doing that by introducing new gems. Lots and lots of new gems. For quite a while now, the way we have approached new skills in Path of Exile expansions is to make a bunch of gems themed around an entirely new build or dramatically augmenting a few existing builds. The blood skills in the Ultimatum expansion are a good example of this. While this approach is great in terms of creating interesting new builds, it doesn't always affect every character game-wide. In order to achieve this big metagame shakeup, we've come up with a crazy idea for the Expedition expansion. Adding a gigantic pile of new gems at once, spread among as many different playstyles as possible. Each of these gems can of course be used by many different classes, but we use the list of 19 Ascendancy classes for inspiration when planning these gems. Our goal here is that regardless of which build you're playing, there will be new gems that you can add to your character. Let's go through the 19 new skill and support gems.
Что можно на всех Ascendancy играть.
The Earthbreaker support gem can be linked to any slam skill. Upon use, it summons an ancestor totem that uses that slam on your behalf. In this example, we've created a build that summons multiple ancestor totems that each wield tectonic slam. As you can see,
это саппорт тотем на атаке, как я понимаю. На слэмы, конкретно на слэмы. Прикольно. Саппорт тотемы на слэмы.
Adept players will also be wondering if the Earthbreaker support allows you to create leap slamming totems, and the answer is absolutely.
Поехали. Погнали, блядь. Сюда
As with other ancestor totems, the Earthbreaker support also provides a buff to you, granting some increased area of effect with melee skills.
Ну и тебе баф тоже дают.
Rage Vortex provides a new way to consume your rage, unleashing a whirling vortex that rapidly hits enemies within its range. It gains damage and area of effect based on how much rage is sacrificed. The vortex slows down when enemies survive being hit by it, causing it to deal intense damage to tough targets. While you can only have one Rage Vortex active at a time, characters such as Berserkers who are able to generate a lot of rage quickly will find it a great way to augment their damage output. Bone Shatter strikes your enemies with a forceful blow. If an enemy is stunned by this attack, a powerful shockwave is released. The area of effect of the shockwave is determined by the duration of the stun you inflicted. Each time you use Bone Shatter against an enemy, you take physical damage yourself and gain a trauma stack. The more stacks you have, the more damage Bone Shatter will deal to both you and your enemies. This self-damage mechanic makes the Juggernaut the ideal class for the skill, because they have easy access to lots of armor to mitigate the downside. Also, the Juggernaut has ascendancy passives that grant increased stun duration, which help make sure the shockwave is as large as possible.
Ну, такой какой-то скилл просто.
Defiance.
И они апнули, кстати, эти скиллы. Shield,
the new head support gem can only support strike skills and is basically like a mini headhunter. When a supported strike kills a rare enemy, you'll steal one of its modifiers. Obviously, this gem can't be as crazy as the full Headhunter experience, so it comes with some restrictions. Stolen modifiers can persist for 20 seconds, and slaying another rare enemy will replace the modifier you have active. The Behead support also grants more damage against enemies on low life. In conjunction with the Slayer's Bane of Legends Ascendancy passive, this bonus really embraces the execution.
Оно заменяется. Если ты от одной иерархии спиздил мод и пойдешь к следующей иерархии спиздишь мод, они заменяются. Вот это
These arrows periodically pulse with lightning damage that arcs to nearby arrows. The skill works very well with multiple projectiles because you can quickly set up a large patch of lightning death.
Вау, вот это охуенно выглядит, я не знаю.
You may notice that the Pathfinder isn't holding any weapons. This is because Explosive Concoction is the very first ranged skill that can and must be used unarmed. It's also the first skill that directly interacts with the benefits provided by your flasks. When you throw your Explosive Concoction onto a targeted area, it deals fire damage and uses available charges from your Ruby, Sapphire, and Topaz flasks to grant bonuses based on what flask charges were used. The skill still works even if you don't have the appropriate flasks or charges to consume, but correctly managing your flask setup can greatly enhance the power of this skill.
Вот это охуенная механика.
What we really love about this gem is that it brings to life the idea of throwing your flasks at enemies and having them explode. In conjunction with the flask-focused benefits provided by the Pathfinder's Ascendancy passive skills, we're really excited to see what new playstyles are enabled by this gem.
Прикольно. Причем это именно трех фласк работает.
It teleports you up to a power creep. As a consequence of trying to make compelling content, each expansion we release either gives players more axes on which to improve their character, more effective skills to use, or ways to craft better and more powerful items. Measuring from closed beta to now, this Expedition expansion is our 30th Path of Exile release. The amount of power creep varies per release, of course, with systems like Ascendancy classes providing, what, like 20, 30, 40% power creep at once? Like with Compound Interest, it would only take 8% more player power per expansion from new items, crafting, character systems, item acquisition opportunities, and new skills for player power to grow tenfold since the game has been out. And tenfold is roughly what we measure the increase in player power to be. We may nerf the most out-of-hand cases every launch, but we're only reducing them back down to close to the new baseline. The average Path of Exile character gets more and more powerful. While we do occasionally add new endgame challenges that are appropriate for the current power level of top characters, the rest of the game just becomes relatively easier and easier. Some games handle this by just endlessly and exponentially scaling monster life and damage to counteract player power growth. Eventually, the numbers get too large and you need to crunch them all down.
Ну это как в Диабле, он говорит про то, что бесконечно добавляют, и это полная хуйня, что для игроков. Бесконечные механики. И они говорят, мы не хотим бесконечные там данжи какие-то добавлять. Мне кажется, это невозможно. Он говорит, мы хотим сделать, чтобы вы выбирали суперсильное, а что вам весело.
Players feared going into the ship graveyard cave because of the Flicker Strike ghosts. They were careful around rowers because a couple of unlucky charges could outright kill them. Trying to kill a Goatman Shaman while he had Molten Shell up was a pretty terrible idea. Nowadays, however, the game is a lot easier. We added level 2 and 4 support gems without increasing the difficulty of the game to compensate at all. Modern League mechanics shower the players enjoy League content because it's challenging. They also told us they really enjoyed the Path of Exile 2 demo at ExileCon, and it was tuned to be almost punitive in terms of difficulty. One thing we learned from building that demo was that it's okay for some monsters to be able to run 20 to 40% faster than the player. In Path of Exile 1's first act, there isn't a single monster that moves faster than the player's default movement speed.
О, я не знал.
We are rebalancing the campaign to be challenging. So far, we are focused mostly on Act 1, but with each coming expansion, we'll be extending this further. Our plan is that within a For quite some time, Path of Exile players and developers have been keen for a big rework to its flask system. In the endgame, flasks grant really powerful buffs for a number of seconds after use, and these buffs allow the player to kill monsters quickly, filling the flasks up so they can be used as soon as they run out. With 5 such flasks equipped, the correct behavior was to spam the 1 to 5 keys repeatedly to keep all the flasks constantly up without any downsides. This flask piano playstyle was popular enough that players were improvising devices to hit all of those keys at once. Spamming the same set of keys repeatedly to get a powerful set of buffs that rival the power you get from your entire set of equipped items is not a fun game mechanic. It's unbalanced and certainly isn't nice on your wrist. It prevents us from balancing the game well for players who aren't smashing their keyboard constantly and seriously restricts the design space we can use on flasks. In addition, certain unique flasks completely outclass other ones in terms of raw damage output. It was pretty clear to us that Path of Exile would be a lot better if we did some serious work on flasks to make sure that their incentives were aligned with fun rather than with spamming blindly. Most utility flasks and unique flasks have been rebalanced. Expect a lot less permanent power from flasks. Flasks that provide raw defense or raw power are the ones with the biggest nerfs. Some flasks have been selectively buffed a bit if they were underpowered or less popular.
Yeah, but...
In the Expedition expansion, there are now 3 ways that you can use flasks. You can either continue to use the rebalanced ones the traditional way, or you can apply one of the 2 new types of currency items to your flasks. The Instilling Orb and Enkindling Orb drop as part of the regular drop pool from regular monsters and chests. The Instilling Orb will cause a flask to be used automatically upon a specific condition being met. For example, when its charges become full, or when you become affected by Ignite.
Yeah, but...
This means that in the cases where you would previously want to time a specific flask usage, you can now rely on it having it.
Но это только с арбами, то есть это не по дефолту. Это не по дефолту. И это не юник фласки.
But provides a big boost to their effect, duration. There are gems that grant huge multiplicative damage bonuses, and there are gems that do a bunch of stuff you don't really care about. When you're building a character, by far the correct choice is just stack on all the multiplicative damage bonuses and ignore all the interesting utility support gems because their opportunity cost is just too high.
Короче, в целом, гемы, саппорт, которые были more damage, чуть-чуть изменены на какой-то утилити еще дополнительно. А damage меньше намного.
Which is a goal for this balance, but can't design really powerful spells. In 3.15, triggering skills through support gems will require paying their mana cost. In fact, sometimes it now costs more than casting the gem by hand. Thankfully, though, this isn't very hard.
Все триггер-скиллы требуют маны. Будь то кастон крит, кастон атак, просто где-то триггер. Они должны монокост. Ну, они будут монокост снимать.
And they are often the best representation of the craziness that our character customization system
Ну, это хуйня, потому что...
We're confident that they are just as powerful as before, but... So back in early 2018, there was a trend where every online game was releasing a Battle Royale mode and getting a lot of good press in the process. We had a running joke in the office that our fast development speed meant that we could probably add a Battle Royale mode to Path of Exile in 1 day of development. As April Fool's Day approached, we tried to do exactly that. We pulled a few developers together and asked them to spend no more than 1 workday each on their contributions to this new mode. On April 1st, 2018, we launched Path of Exile Royale.
Yeah, buddy!
It was a quick and dirty job, so we only left the game mode turned on for a couple of days. It went pretty well, considering it had no custom balance whatsoever.
Oh my god, I'm getting destroyed!
Features. We have no idea what the long-term viability of this game mode is.
Они, короче, мы, говорит, будем запускать, смотреть и тестить. Вот. Поэтому это пока еще
непонятно. Our initial version of Royale from 2018 used Path of Exile's default passive skill tree while allocating skills, and you gain 2 passive skill points per level.
Это и надо игре. Просто фан получить, а не долбоёбом какой-то эксплоужен делать.
We have created low-level versions of around 50 iconic skill gems, 20 support gems, and over 70 unique items. These Royale items are appropriate for low-level play and include quite a few things that are usually only available at substantially high character levels in the core game next few months. Please check it out.
В течение следующих месяцев каждые выходные будут рояли
Keep an eye on our news over the next week as we reveal the finer details of what's coming in Expedition, including the full patch notes on Tuesday, US time. We'll move on to the Q&A shortly to answer your burning questions, but first, let's have a look at the new supporter packs that are available right now to celebrate the launch of Expedition and help fund ongoing development of Path of Exile, Path of Exile 2, and special modes like Royale. The Soulkeeper and Aesir supporter packs come with masses of points to spend in the store, social frames, forum titles and badges, a download of the digital soundtrack, and of course exclusive cosmetic microtransactions like armor sets and weapon skins. The Soulkeeper series comes with an exclusive pet, and the Aesir series an exclusive set of wings. On top of the traditional small and medium-sized supporter packs that are consistent with ones we've released in the past, we're also adding an optional new 3rd tier for each series. This new tier includes an exclusive apparition portal effect and a slightly better ratio of points per dollar spent. The introduction of these new packs should give you more options for what combination of each pack series you purchase. Like always, it's possible to upgrade between pack tiers within each series.
И чё, так, как там было?
Ну, Лига, конечно, да.
Чё?
Ну, крутая, крутая.
Ого. Поговая, да? Как там?
Я ничего не говорил.
В смысле? Ты, говорит, там пиздец будет, пог. Лютейшая, говорит, будет. Смысл?
Блять, чел. Ты, короче, какой-то негатив опять нагнетаешь, блять.
Не, я вообще, наоборот, супер доволен. Все, что они сделали практически. Придете. Если ты с Explosion сгорел, если ты не услышал, что они делают, ну, тут, блядь, можно даже не обновлять. Нет.
Потому что они борются с тем, что, блядь, игроки стали значительно сильнее старого контента.
Ну, не совсем так.
Yeah. We'll get into the
Даже
nerfs
близко не так.
and like fewer buffs to underuse skills and builds. And while the goal is pretty clearly, as you stated in the video, to start reining in power creep and
Надо в душ, на самом деле, идти, наверное, чат. Я думаю, здесь уже не особо что-то будет интересное, плюс-минус. Поэтому можно подофать. Я считаю. Что думаете, чат? Мы всю информацию получили. Да? Что скажете в целом? Ну, я в целом нерфом рад. Плюс-минус, да, все, что нам происходит. Единственное, что это лига опять. Ну, то есть какая-то туфта очередная. Непонятно зачем. Вот. Единственное, что на гэмбл окна интересно посмотреть, но там тоже своего рода такая какая-то. Вот. А по поводу именно вот скиллгема, я надеюсь, еще ветка тоже поменяется. И вот с веточкой еще тоже бы разобраться. Прям вообще суперска. You know. Вот все, что касается гемов, очень классная хуйня. Вот так вот. Все, мужичары, давайте. Всех обнял, приподнял. Хорошего настроения. Увидимся завтра. Посмотрим, что будем делать. Все.